Hi, Paul. We're so
I,
happy to have you back. Thank you so much for coming today and for sharing some of your insights and wisdoms into promoting STEM careers to girls. I'm really curious to hear about your work. And without further ado, going to hand the virtual podium over to you.
okay, in that case, I'm quickly going to share my screen, hopefully. And where are we? This is the one I want. And let me just start that slideshow. Okay, so basically what this is about is why I feel the future of technology is female. And a lot of people, a lot of girls don't actually see careers for themselves in technology. And I believe that a big problem is they don't actually get the opportunity to see just what you can do. So the scope of the research I have here is basically I've got 20 plus years in education. I've developed a number of multiple award-winning technology projects. I've worked with educational institutions in 17 countries on 5 continents, and I've interacted with somewhere more than 500 schools and colleges. Now, in 1998, I was working with a technology club in New York State at the school district I worked for there. And I ended up with the students who didn't want to do athletics, they didn't want to be in band, they didn't want drama clubs, they didn't really have a home. And they kind of wandered into my office as technology coordinator and started to do things with technology and started to see what they could do to help. And they did everything from changing printer cartridges to helping teachers install software and all that kind of thing. And there was usually around 20 to 30 students, and typically of those, in a given year, 1 or 2 were female. So basically 5 to 10% of the students that came in were female, which was a tad disappointing. Now, I'm not quite sure what's happened to the top of this slide, but it seems to have stolen something from one of your emails. So 2012, I was back in the UK and I started doing festivals. The whole idea of a festival is we go into a school, take a whole bunch of kit and demonstrate devices and technologies to different schools and classes. And in that setup, we had Pixel, which was a smartphone-based AI constructed robot. In other words, it was a piece of AI that sat on a smartphone and it allowed you to basically ask it questions, make it smile, make it happy, sad. Depending upon what you did to it, you could poke the screen, you could poke it in the eye and it would say ouch, and you could build programs around it. There was Edison, which is a tiny little robot about the size of a pack of playing cards that has sound and light capability, and it can roll around and 2 wheels and do stuff. There was from Easy Robot JD, which is a bipedal humanoid robot, which I think we've seen before on here, had a built-in camera and is capable of machine vision and AI and stuff like that. And we had a task that involved a robotic arm with a precision delivery. Basically, he had to pick up something which was labeled as hazardous waste, pick it up, move it around and drop it into a safe container. And then we had assorted other tracked and wheeled bots. Now, we had a bunch of observations from these festivals. The male students were predominantly interested in driving the robots. The female students were usually the fastest at the robotic arm task. The male students, and this isn't meant as anything bad for Jacob and Jake, they would just jump into the tasks and do the best and sort of learn as they went along. The female students as groups would read the brief, discuss the task that they had to do, and then set about making a plan, and would generally complete these tasks faster than the male students, even though they actually started touching stuff several minutes after the male students would. So some anecdotal things from these festivals. I was doing an event at Wolverhampton Grammar School in London. Sorry, in England. And this group of girls had asked if they could experiment with the Edison robot during the lunch break. And I always used to stay with the equipment so I could charge things and repair anything that needed repairing as we went along. What these girls decided to do, they read in the instructions that you could play music with this robot. They could play musical notes. And one of the girls' mother's birthday was that particular day. So they programmed it to play Happy Birthday, do a little dance while it was singing Happy Birthday or playing Happy Birthday, and a little light show. Little lights went on and off. And then they filmed it on one of their phones and sent it to the parent as a gift. Another time we had the Easy Robot JD, which can use Microsoft Azure services for being able to do machine vision. So it can do cognitive recognition, it can do all things like that. So it'll do facial recognition, it can have a guess how old you are, it can look at you and decide percentage wise, as all AIs do, whether you're happy, sad, whatever. And normally these events would finish at 3:30, but I would hang around if there were students that wanted to do more stuff. And a group of girls stayed with their teacher after the event. I eventually got to pack up almost 6 o'clock. The students had gone around grabbing, I think, every teacher that was available, every custodian, anybody they could think of, bringing them in front of this robot, making it guess whether they were happy or sad and how old they were. And they were absolutely made up by the fact that the worst it got was 1.5 years out on somebody who was 50. It was really, really accurate. And in between having the robot guess the ages of people, you had this group of girls who were sitting, and there's a Yorkshire term called gurning, which is pulling faces, and they would sit there pulling faces in a row in front of this robot and have the robot try and decide whether they were trying to be happy or sad or how they were feeling, angry or whatever. And another group of girls at a different school had used the same robot with a little bit more elaborate programming to actually detect how people were feeling and then play from a selection of music a piece of music that they felt reflected that emotion. So the girls were really good at that kind of thing. So my conclusions from this were that it would appear that girls are far more interested in activities that include not only interactivity, but also the use of emotional content, whether this is something that that they can use this emotional capability within an application to trigger sounds or lightscapes or anything like that. But where a device has some level of emotional feedback that they can relate to on an empathy basis, they love those kind of things. And once they're exposed to it, it really is hard to get them off it. They really do take it to the next level, and you can see the way their brains work starting to add, well, if I can do this, if it knows I'm happy, what can I make it do from there? So realistically, what we need to do from my perspective would be taking those currently available AI technologies. And I think in the last presentation I did for GIFT, I showed a low-cost way of being able to harness the whole AI and cognitive reasoning pieces to harvest that and build that into projects that we would expect students to be able to work with in schools. Now, so finally, what I've got is AI is becoming easier to access. There's services like Azure Cognitive Services and AWS, the Amazon services have the same kind of thing, as does Google. And there are products coming out from companies like Quix that make it ever simpler to integrate those services within the code that's being created. So rather than just write a simple program, you can write a simple program that interacts with the user on an emotional or a personal level. And those kind of things will expand the way that our students start to write code and write programs, but it's going to be female students that will lead the way from their combination of intelligence, patience, and empathy. They're not just going to jump in and start hacking something together. They're going to think about it, and they're going to think about how it relates to themselves and to the people that use it. And that's why I believe that the future of technology, particularly with AI-based technology, is going to be powered by females and the current female students. And I've put my email address on there so that if anybody needs any information on those projects or wants to actually, I can do things with teams where I can put stuff online and let people come and have a play and see what they think. My info's there. And on that note, I'm going to stop sharing and hopefully go back to the screen. Am I back on the screen?
You are indeed. Thank you.
And that was basically it. I mean, I've spent the last part of 20 odd years working with girls in technology, from 1 or 2 in 30 to now I do stuff where I've been into schools and I work with whole classes of female students. And you really do see that difference.
And it's so important to ensure that we, I think, are engaging these young women earlier so that they don't self-select out, recognizing the importance of their participation. So thank you for the great evidence and insights into the future of STEM. Yeah, really inspiring. Dr.
You're welcome.
Dr. Johnson.
Paul, I'm most definitely, Paul, I'm most definitely going to be in touch with you, because I think this is absolutely necessary. And I never even thought about it like that, in terms of trying to align the technology to really resonate with girls. And this is one of our biggest challenges. And yeah, it looks awesome. I love it.
Well, we use this guy quite a lot. And to female students, it looks cute. But once you realize the camera's in the top and they start interacting with it, you get this whole bunch of grinning people sat round it, pulling faces, and it's telling them, oh, you're happy, you're sad, you're angry, you're whatever. And it really does pull them into it, because once they figured out that they can do that, then they go, well, okay, so now I know this thing can make it do that. How can I use that and do something useful with it? I mean, we have I have a project that I do using this tiny little controller board here and a camera that allows it to read a children's book. Children's books are really simple. You have maybe one sentence of text and you have a picture on each page. So you can set it up so that the camera can actually look at the page, can describe the picture to you, and can read the text. And things like that came from my daughter, who's 10, who looked at that and said, well, if it can read the front of that book that you've got, can it read one of my baby books when I was 3 or 4 years old? And I said, oh, I'm sure it's possible. We'll just have a look and see. And there we went, sat there, the two of us, a 10-year-old and a 60-year-old, and we came up with this thing that could read a book.
Wow. Very awesome.
Thank you.
So again, thank you, Paul, for being here and for sharing your wisdom.